Okay, morning folks. It's pretty early. Well, it is going on 7 o'clock. Thanksgiving's coming up, and I've already made my Swedish potato sausage for Thanksgiving. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some of my baked beans. I bake them like 3 times a year: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, and occasionally some other times. But this is a recipe that I got from my mother many years ago. It's pretty simple. You got, of course, the beans, navy beans. Just get the navy beans. Don't get the regular big beans. The navy beans are the best. And then I put in some bacon, onions, brown sugar, molasses, a little mustard, ketchup, and then to sweeten it up, I put in some real northern Wisconsin maple syrup that our neighbor gave us up there. He does that every year. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this all together, and I'll go through the ingredients with you. And I'll show you how I layer the stuff and get it in the oven, and then we'll just watch it cook all day. I have soaked these beans this time. This is 2 pounds of beans in here that I soaked overnight. Normally I don't do it that way. Normally I just put them in raw, but then it takes up to 12 hours to bake the beans. And they get a little gassy, to be honest with you. So I soaked them here, and I washed them out, and I drained the water several times. That should take care of some of the gas. It doesn't really ruin the flavor, and I don't have to bake them quite as long. So this is what we got. I want to give you a close-up of everything I got, and then I want to prepare everything, and then before I put it all in and layer it, I'll show you what I got. Right there is the beans, and we got the maple syrup, and then we got the molasses and the brown sugar in those containers. And there's the onion on the cutting board. There's the bacon. I get this right from the meat counter. And this is about it's just under 3/4 of a pound. I'm only going to use, of the beans, I'm only going to use 1.5 pounds. And then there's the ketchup and mustard, and there's the bean crock right there. Some people have used crock pots. Now, I've never used a crock pot. I've always done them in the oven. I've always cooked them 8 to 12 hours, depending upon the size. People that have made it in a crock pot have told me that it takes forever and a day, and they're not near as good. So I'm going to put all this stuff, ingredients in, get it all chopped up, and then I'll show you how I layer it all. So we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, we're going to take just about half of this onion. We'll take this here. We're going to actually cut this into pieces like that. I like a little bigger pieces. Adds a little flavor to it. So what we did is we just sliced that up. And we're just going to stick these right in the pot. So I'm going to just stick this in here. We're going to cut these about 1 inch. Okay? And I found out sometime when you're cutting up bacon, it's better to have it froze a little bit. This I didn't bother with. I just got it the other day. And like I said, this is I got it right out of the meat counter, not the packaged bacon. I've used the packaged bacon before, but I like the stuff out of the meat market. Gives you a better flavor. And the amount of bacon you use all depends upon how much fat you want in your beans and how much you like bacon or not. Now, if I used a full 2 pounds of beans, I would put in a whole pound of bacon. But since I'm only going to go 1.5 pounds, I'm only going to use this here. It's about 0.6 of a pound. Okay, and we just stick this right over here. I can use this spoon here. This bacon I cut up, now we put that on the very bottom of the bean crock. And once we get it all in there, we'll spread it out evenly in the bottom of the crock. Okay. Alright, there we got all the bacon in there. Okay. We're just going to spread that out down here. You don't have to break it apart because when you bake it, it'll all separate. Most of it will anyhow. And it'll rise up through the beans and they'll all apart. Next we'll put in all the onions. And we'll just spread them around a little bit. Okay. Get that out of the way over here. Alright. Next, we take the brown sugar. Now, the amount of brown sugar you want in there all depends upon how sweet you want it. Now, normally I use dark brown sugar. Gives it a better color. And this again, I'm going to put a cup in here. It seems like maybe a lot, but it's not really. This left brown sugar I left over here is a mixture of light and dark. Okay. Now, you can put all that stuff in there. Like I said, this will be about a cup of brown sugar. And like I said, I like the dark. This is a combination too. So we'll put all that in there. And we just pile that up right smack in the middle. Just let it go. You can spread it around a little bit in there. Okay. So that's about a cup. About halfway or 3/4 of the way through the baking, I always pull out a little of the juice and a couple of the beans, and I'll taste it. And if it's not sweet enough, I'll add some more brown sugar or molasses or even some maple syrup to sweeten it up. Or if I want a little more tomato taste, I'll add a little more ketchup to it. Now, I only use ketchup. I don't use any of that paste or anything. And so you can doctor it up, when it's just about almost done. And that's the only time I'll ever stir my beans in the pot. You add what's the stuff you want in there, you mix it all up very gently, and then you just let it bake and finish baking until they're done. And even after, let's say you're not quite happy with how they taste, afterwards when you're reheating them for the dinner, I always reheat them in a crock pot. That's the easiest way. And then you can still doctor them up a little bit with some more either sweetener or tomato ketchup or whatever. So, next thing we're going to add in there is we're going to put in molasses. Now this is Grandma's molasses, and you don't need a lot. This is more or less color. So out of this jar, this here is a 12-ounce jar, I'm going to add maybe about 1 inch out of this jar. I'm just going to pour it in there right to the bottom of this label. We're just going to pour that right on the top there. Okay, and we'll just leave that in there. This gives it a nice rich color and a little better taste. And like again, however much you want to use. And yeah, That's about an inch, okay? Now then again, that's all the taste. However you want to taste it is fine. I like my beans a little tomatoey, but also sweet flavor to it. So now this here is a 32 ounce bottle of ketchup. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in the balance of this. The jar size is 32, it's about half full. So this is going to be about 16 ounces of ketchup. So that's just what I'm going to put in there. And we're just going to squeeze it right in there. Like I said, you don't have to mix any of this stuff up, because it'll all bake through when it's baking. You bake it real slow, and it will all cook together. We're going to take the top off here and put a little water in there and shake it up. I'll just shake that all up. And we'll just pour it in there. Okay. We'll rinse this out and we'll put it in the recycle a little later. Now we're going to put some ketchup in here. There isn't much in here. This is just for a little tang flavor to it. Again, I don't put a lot of this in here. Oh, that was empty, so, okay, we'll rinse this one out, so, it's not much. This is all the taste. The more you put in there, the little tartar it gets. Okay, so we've got in there, we've got these layered now. We put the bacon on the bottom. Gotta put this thing back together. Yeah, we got the bacon on the bottom, and then we put the onions on, we layered them out. Then we put in the brown sugar, and then we poured the molasses on top of that. And now, just to sweeten it up, and this is really a neat deal. You put in some maple syrup. Now, use the real maple syrup. Don't go buy this watered down version. And this don't take much, but it adds a very, very nice, distinct flavor to it. And if you put too much of this in, I'll tell you, you'll wind up with candied beans. And I did that one time. Boy, it was like eating candy. And they really weren't that good. So you just want a little bit in here to get a little flavor. That's probably not more than about a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more. Again, this you can always add in after you're just about done baking them if they're not sweet enough. Because this is all hit and miss, and I've been doing this on the fly for, I don't know, my mother started showing me how to bake beans. Oh, I'll be dating myself a little bit, but back in the 40s, I remember, late 40s, early 50s, helping my mom do this. This bean crock, by the way, is hers. She had it for many, many, many years before I got it. And I would say this crock is at least 100 years old, if not more. Now again, I say use the bean crock, put it in the oven, and when I put this in the oven, I'll heat it up until it starts to boil or bubble a little bit. Once it's bubbling, I like to turn it down to about 185 to 200 degrees. All I want to do is just sit little bubbles coming up around the side. And then you just keep it in the oven. Since I soaked these beans, it'll probably take a good 6 to 8 hours to get them done. So the only thing next we got to do is to layer the beans in there. And like I said, these are soaked. It's a pretty simple recipe. And I just dump them in there. With a bean crock like this, you don't want to fill it up all the way to the top. I'm going to leave about 2.5 inches to the top, because these will expand a little bit, and if you get it too full, it'll boil over and you'll have one big mess in your oven. So you don't want to do that. You stick them out like that. Like I said, use navy beans. Don't use the big beans, because well, I prefer that. Maybe you like that. Some people put kidney beans and all kinds of different beans in there. I'm not a fan of that. I like real beans, real navy beans, because they brown up real good, and they're not going to take too awfully long to do it. Okay? Alright, that's what they'll look like. And I got about 2.5 inches to the top. Now I'm going to fill it up with water to about 1 inch over the top of those beans, and then I'm going to stick it in the oven. I'll start it out at 350 degrees. I'll keep checking it. Once it starts to bubble a little bit, I'll turn my temperature down to between 185 and 200 degrees. And then we just keep checking it off and on through the day. You can't really see the water. And I really can't see the water. It's about 1 inch over the top of the beans. And then we just put the cover on there, just like that, and we stick them in the oven. Like I said, we'll start at 350, keep checking it. When it starts boiling, or bubbling a little bit, and then we'll turn it down between 185 and 200. And all you want them to do is just lightly bubble throughout the day. You don't want to boil them or anything, you just want to bake them very slow, and they'll be very, very good. Okay, I always put a cookie sheet in there. Reason being, if this decides to boil over, and it's happened to me sometimes, you'll make such a mess in your oven that you'll never bake beans again. Anyhow, there we go. We stick them right in there, and we set the oven. To start with, like I said, we'll start it at 350 degrees. There you can see what I mean about how they swell up. And as soon as they start cooking a little bit more, that'll all suck right down into the beans. This is after 2.5 hours in the oven at low temp. And you can see that the bacon stuff is boiled up. It's got a nice rich looking color. And we're at the 5.5 hour mark. Not quite done, but boy, they're going to be nice and sweet. You can really taste that maple syrup in there. Beans are a little hard here. Enough tomato, enough sweetness, enough molasses. It's going to be really good. Just got to get the beans finished off and get them a little softer. Doing good. Yeah, it'll be a couple more hours, and they'll be perfect. It's been 10 hours since I put them in the oven. This is the first time I've used this stove, and this oven is different than what I'm used to. Normally I wouldn't put the heat, the temperature between 180 and 200, 185, 200. This one I've had to run at 240 degrees in order to get that little bubbling action. But anyhow, they're done. And I like to have them rest, so I'm going to shut the oven out there. I'm going to take them off. I'm just going to set them up here on top of the stove and just let them rest for a while, and then we'll take a sample here in about a half hour, an hour. This is a pretty heavy pot, or crock right now. So we'll just take it out of here and Now we'll just leave them sit there in the crock and let them slowly cool. We'll get them down to, well, not quite room temperature, but then I'll just leave them in the crock overnight and I'll put them in the fridge and let them sit. But before I do that, I'm going to get me a bowl of them and try them. And oh, they look good. Okay, there's what they look like. And they're really, really good. So we just let them rest now. When we do that, leaving it rest like that, it allows all the juices to get down and sink all the way to the bottom. And they'll continue cooking like this for probably a good half hour, 45 minutes. And then we'll give them a try and see what they're like. Okay, we're gonna try a bowl. Just check and see how good these are. There they are. That's what they look like. That's pretty good. They smell delicious. So, let's give it a whirl here. Let's see. Oh, very good. They're sweet, but not overly sweet. They're soft. They're cooked well. Got the tomato, bacon, and the maple syrup flavor. Very good. So that's how I make my beans. It took a little longer in the oven, like I said. It took about 10 hours. But that oven, I don't think is working quite right. I don't think that the temperature has set properly, or is not the same as what the temperature you got to set it. And I think it's the inside temperature around a little lower than what you got, because I had to put this up to 240 degrees. That's too much. Anyhow, there we go. Enjoy. If you like these, give me a comment. Subscribe to my channel if you like it. And I'd like to hear any comments. So we'll see you down the road. Good.